This is The Commercial Wealth. My mission is simple: to help you achieve financial freedom through commercial property using calculated risks and practical education. My name is Basha Deswani and I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And I just really genuinely want to know about your journey. How did you start it? When was King Bella born?
Yes.
And what's the journey behind it?
So it started back in 2000 actually, I'm going to take you back to the full start of this. It really started when I got married with my husband. That's really when this really started, because we had a mentor at the time and she said, well, you know how you sometimes, have you ever when you got married, did you ever do a scoring card or how you guys were suited or anything like that? Okay, well, only my marriage lady did that to us. Okay.
Good. Tell me more.
So she was really trying to understand in each areas how, the communication will be. And we went bad in finances.
Oh.
The area of finances was there's going to be conflict of, communication. So she said, how are you going to build your wealth and what is that going to look like? So she really helped us on our journey to start that communication openly. And so from there, really it just started, we chose property. We were like, property sounds really good. So really from then we started going to courses and seminars and just really understanding about property. Mm-hmm. And then really we didn't get serious about it until I actually fell pregnant with my first child, which it took me 3 years to fall pregnant with her. And I remember sitting there and I was about 8 months pregnant and I'm sitting in a seminar and my husband's like, we're going to sign up to this. Yeah. We're going to take a leap. And and we did. We signed up and I was 8 months pregnant. I'm like, okay, we'll do something with that. And we didn't end up doing anything. I enjoyed my time off with my daughter. We were watching some things, the education, but we didn't do anything. And then it was the realization that I had to go back to work. And I was like,
I'm not ready.
I don't want to do that. And I'd always been such a go-getter. I've always action-taked and I actually really like working.
Yeah.
But I also really love my own time.
Yeah.
And my fuel was my daughter. I wanted to stay at home with her. So I really was like, okay, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to create this to be, some pathway for us. And then from there, that just was a cascade of just open to, whatever flowed my way with it. And we went full force into property development.
Awesome. So what was your background before that? You were in a corporate job?
Yes, I worked for the Deputy Secretary for Family and Community Services. So I was a public servant.
Oh, wow. So different.
Very different.
Completely different world.
Very different world. Look, I did grow up with parents who did property development, but their property development versus my scale. I was talking to my mother the other day and she's like, I was talking to her about, because property can be really intense sometimes. And there's some intense things going on at the moment with decisions that I have to make. And I was like, I went to her to advice and she's like, I wasn't a risk taker.
Your mum?
Yes. Yeah. My mum. She's like, you're skydiving, Laura. And I was like, oh, okay.
Awesome.
So it put it in perspective as to, they would buy one house and then they would, sell that one and then they'll buy another house and then sell that one. And then they did two duplexes and that was a big scale for them. Yeah. And the only time of investment was they worked with their parents to borrow some money from their parents to create the duplexes. But really the scale that I'm doing is I'm working with other people's money. I have investors investing millions of dollars and large projects that's literally why she said you're skydiving compared to me.
Yeah, because it's a completely different level than doing townhouses. So how do you borrow people's money and why would people want to trust? And how do you know who to pitch, who are the right people to pitch? And is there a network that you need to be a part of it first before you sort of even think of, so say for example, if I'm like a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old and I don't know anything about property development as of yet, I don't have any friends that are in that zone and I do want to start my journey, but I don't have anyone to bounce back with. Where do I sort of like start?
It's everyone starts at different points, and I think the first thing, if you're in that 20 age, I think definitely going and, getting educated and getting into some seminars and groups. And I think there's some really great people, you find your property people. That's what I say. There's a property lovers group out there, whether that's in seminars and communities. I think it's so amazing to get connected with those people because there is a similarity of how you think, that you're like, okay, you recognize that you can create wealth through property and not just a 9-to-5 job. And then, so that would be my first start. And for me, I went into my first project and that was my first project. And I also worked with other people's money. So I don't think that there is a baseline as to what you have to look like. I think it's just, how do you back yourself? And it's an interesting thing to say of like, okay, just go back yourself. It's not just like that. It's, for me, backing myself was, getting into these groups, starting to, warm up to, am I going to do renovation? Am I going to do commercial? Am I going to do residential? And once I started to get precise on the pathway for me, that's backing myself because I'm choosing something. And once I started to go down that, when you go down that route, when it comes to investing, people invest with other people's money. A lot of people think it's about the deal. I would say it's 10% of the deal. That's the thing to open up the door. Here is a project. This is the return of investment. And though the real next conversation is like, who are you? Because in any scenario, in business, in property, anytime someone's working with other people's money and capital raising, it's about who are they actually investing in. So I think the question to ask yourself is, how do you invest in yourself?
Okay.
And
just want to get some more clarity.
Yeah. So
sorry, you finished.
Yeah. So how I look at that is, if I was to ask you today, let me frame this. Give me a moment. It comes back to a self-reflection. Do you feel that you're investable?
I am.
And there'll be people who say, I am, but inside they're going, I don't actually know if I am.
Self-doubt. Yeah.
The self-doubt. Or there'll be people like, no, I don't know what that means. And it's an internal self-reflection, because whatever is happening internally will be expressed externally. So for me, because I trusted myself so much, I backed myself so much, and I knew I was investable because I invest in me every single day. We're having a talk outside of this of like how you have beautiful rituals every day of how you connect with you and yourself. And that's so beautiful. You have that deep connection to yourself, but not everybody has that. And this is probably a little bit of a taboo thing that you hear when it comes to investing and working with other people's money. Here we're talking about investing and property, and now we're talking about, backing yourself and trusting yourself and having a deep relationship with yourself. But it is all yourself.
Yeah.
You are the external reflection to everything.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. That brings me to my next question, the woo-woo property lady. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And we were talking about that before. And I just want to learn, like, we are in our normal environment. We don't talk about the universe and its power, and it's so away from the normal. And like, we are not conditioned that way. We're not born in that environment where it's normal to talk about that. So what brought you in that, and how did you sort of started your journey in that sort of world, and what has helped you in that? Like, how did that help you knowing yourself better? So then you know that you are so connected that you only also, because being in property is such a wide world that you meet people from all walks of life. how do you know this is the right person for me, and how to have that discernment where you're like, no, this might not be the person for me?
Yes. I love discernment. That's such a great word. And I was talking to my client about that actually the other day. It was so interesting. He was asking me, he was asking me about different ways that you can structure deals and specifically working with other people's money. And I'm like, and the answer that I gave back was really, it comes back to a discernment. You know, there's so much information about there, but it's like, every time you have to come back to yourself, and this is in property, it's like, how do you come back to yourself and have certainty within yourself? Because property, business, doing anything outside of yourself, there is never going to be certainty. So how do you create certainty? And that's why I am the woo-woo property lady, is because the certainty comes back to the self-reflection, you and your personal journey. Honestly, if you want to go on any business journey, you are going to be faced off with yourself. That's all it is. And the ones who thrive in creating successful businesses or, you know, creating wealth through property outside of having a 9-to-5 job and creating it as their life path really comes back to how much self-work, internal work that they're going to do. So it is my mission to bring the woo-woo, to bring the energetics to property, because property is such a corporate-y, straight 180, like it's one way of thinking. It's very masculine thinking as well. And when you start to think about the woo-woo side of things, it's really tapping into the feminine. And please, those who are males right now who are thinking, you know, listening in right now, this is not a time to turn off. This is actually time to lean in and listen to this, because, you know, we all have the yin and yang within us. Even though if we're women, we are the woman, we still have the masculine within ourselves. And how do we balance that? So coming back to your question, why did I start with this? You know what? I was on the floor. When I started doing this, I was searching for months for a property deal, and I was on the floor crying. Just could not do it. I was like, I'm a failure. I am not good enough for this. I have not found a site. I've been at this for ages. I can't do this. And I was literally, you know, when you bawl your eyes out so much that it like, you're just hurting and there's just no more tears to come out. That's how much I was crying. And then I remembered my husband at the time was working at that time when I first started, and he came home to me and was on the floor, and he had to pick me up and get me off the floor. And I realized in that moment that it's not just all about the strategy. Because if we were to make millions and just go scroll REA, we'd all be millionaires by now.
So true.
It's not. It's about who you are. What are you facing off internally within yourself? You know, I've had so many experiences as a child where I grew up without a father. You know, I grew up with a mother, a single parent, and there was also I left home when I was 16. There was abuse that I experienced, and also things that happen. So we are 99.9% energy. It's scientifically proven. Like, you know, the woo-woo aspect of this is whether you want to start to accept that scientific and start to move with energy, because everything's a frequency. And everything is within arm's reach. But we put all these things, that's the internal dialogue in front of us of why we can't get something. And when I was at the time, bringing you back to my first project was a townhouse project. Then I did another townhouse project. Then I did a luxury house. And then I wanted to move on to unit development. You know, when you just get a dream, a desire, and you're like, I want to do that. And what that was like, I was looking at the skyline of Surfers Paradise, and I was like, I just want to build a unit development. That's what I wanted to do. seems illogical because how could I do that? And when you start to work on your personal development, you start to move outside the realm of what's logical and start to create your life and understand that you are the creator of your life. And I remember at that point in time, I'd only ever raised around $1 to $3 million. And I went to my business mentor at that time and I said, hey, Sean, I really want to do a unit development. He's like, okay, well, why are you coming to me? Because he wasn't a property coach. He was my business mentor. He says, you got all the tools. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know how to do this. You know, you got to have a bigger team. And he goes, well, what does that mean? What does that entail? I'm like, oh, a few more meetings, a few more people to coordinate. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. And then I'm like, oh, but Sean, I'm going to have to raise millions of dollars. And he just dead set looked me in the eyes and he said, Laura, it's a few extra zeros in the end. And I just paused and I looked at him and I said, that's it. So it was all the internal dialogue of me feeling like I couldn't do it because I didn't have the money in my bank account, or I didn't think that I had the network, or I didn't think that I was good enough to be able to do that. It was all my internal dialogue. Mm-hmm. It had nothing to do where really if I could or not. So we all have a choice. We all have a choice. We can either stay in our story or we can use the story for our fuel to do the thing anyway.
So just on that, so say, for example, when you talk about the internal dialogue, when you have that self-doubt kick in, how do you change that internal dialogue, and how do you sort of say, no, I still believe in it and I still want to walk through that path, no matter how fearful it is, like I'm still going to, do it because it feels right in my body and I just want to do it.
Yeah.
What do you see yourself when like that doubt kicks in?
Yeah. So, I'd love to ask, do you know what do you know what courage is?
Yeah.
How would you describe what courage is?
So even when you are feeling scared or fearful, you still do it. It's not that you don't feel that fear, but it's like regardless of you feeling that fear, you still walk that path because you know that's your calling.
Yes. It's not about dimming down what's there. It's actually every single time I hear a dialogue of like, you can't do it, you're not good enough, or you're not worthy for that. Now I recognize that like, oh, it's the ego at the last line of defense.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it is. And that will come up and it will fight at the last bit. And it's like, how do you just surrender to that? Surrendering is just opening and expanding to what's actually there, feeling the scaredness, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's not about dimming it down because then we're spiritually bypassing going like, I don't feel fear. Like we all feel fear.
Yeah. And you still don't. Like if you listen to that internal dialogue and you feel like, oh, I'm not worthy enough to sort of do that deal, or for example, in what you have shared in terms of the unit, like building the units, you just feel like, oh, maybe because I have never done that, I don't have that proof, because your brain wants the proof. Yes. And you're like, oh, this is something very new to me. And your internal fear that kicks in, you're like, oh my God, if I lose everything, which I feel it's a little bit logical. And then you're just like, no, I'll just hold back. I'd rather be in the safe zone, which is a 9 to 5, rather than losing everything. But that's when I think you come in with the people's money, and it's just like, it's other people's money. It's not your money, and you can't literally lose everything because it's not yours entirely. And it's just you who is going to put in everything in that project. Am I right in saying that? Or
so how I view when working, it's such a great question, and it's something that I've journeyed as well. And what I've recognized with working with other people's money is that, okay, you're going to have the first step. there is going to be the courage that you overcome the internal dialogue and take the step anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on what's actually internally going on with you, and as it was saying before, is like by the time you're 3, your programs are locked and loaded. So unconsciously, we are adults having childhood things play out all the time and we don't even realize it. And so when you start to come in the uncomfortable zone, so you've taken the step, you've felt the fear, you've taken courage, and then now it's an uncomfortable zone. So how do you create your new level? This is where I bring in tools, and this is why I've become a coach in the property space, is because there is certain tools to create that as your new norm, expanding your nervous system capacity. And there are so many tools within that as a high level of that. If we don't address that and we don't have tools in that uncomfortable zone, we have a thermostat and we're just going to go back to what's feeling safe. What feels safe is your internal dialogue of, I'm going to lose this money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fear it, you will perpetuate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many times where we hear in the industry, people are in partnerships and, the partnerships goes bad and they lose the money. Happens all the time, not just in property, it's in business as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is in that uncomfortable zone, the person whoever is holding that money, who they haven't been able to overcome to have that as their new norm.
Okay. So can you give us an example on that one tool that might be able to help us sort of solidify that level and just build a solid foundation from there? So whatever tower, however many levels we want to build on that, we are able to do it with like safety and certainty.
Yeah. So I always say the free first thing that I would ever do is just breathe. Learning to breathe. It sounds funny, right? Because we're walking around breathing, but are we? Have you ever actually taken notice of when you breath hold?
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, it will come to, it's interesting. So I teach my clients, we have a 3-day event and I teach them how to have interactions with investors and what they're doing a role play. And when they're role playing, it's like I get them to say, okay, just say, ask for $1 million for a project. And the amount of times when you actually see the dialogue of someone doing that and asking for what they want, they don't actually breathe. They start holding their breath, or they're clenching, or their body is tense. And that's the first sign already what's in your body of like, oh, I'm holding on to something here. I actually don't feel safe here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't feel safe, what do? We got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
It comes back to our fight, flight, or freeze response to our nervous system. So you just might go into shutdown, or you might want to completely run away, or you want to fight with it and be like, it's not me, it's the other person, or it's the market, it's everything external to them. So it comes back to start to recognize when you might send an email off or when you might pay a invoice or pay something where money goes out. Are you thanking that money? Are you feeling okay with that money? Because a lot of people, they're fine to receive the money, but actually it can go both ways. But how do you feel when you pay bills all the time? And what's the level of that? How do you feel when you pay a $100 bill to a $100,000 bill? How does that feel in your body? Because that's going to show you your capacity as to work with other people's money.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And not only other people's money, as to the capacity of which you're able to hold to create wealth and legacy.
Yeah. So it's the capacity within you that you would allow for it to be okay. So the difference between someone earning, say, for example, $50,000 a year to someone earning a $5 million, it's about them feeling that they're okay with holding on to that and then being able to create more with that. So then again, that comes back to the self-worth, and it's all about am I worthy enough to hold that money? And where does it actually stem from? Does it also stem from the childhood? And if it does, is there an easier way to sort of get out of that zone on a daily basis and then just work in your, like, feel that self-worth within you again and then start walking anyway? Because like we were talking about that before as well briefly, where it's like property is such a limitless zone and there's always so much to earn. There's no cap to it. And it is limitless in that capacity. There's just a lot for everybody. There is so much abundance there. There is so much for everyone to eat from that pie. And again, that was bringing me back to another question, which was all about, like, I have experienced that in my industry, and it's all about scarcity. It's all about not sharing the pie with X, Y, and Z, because I don't want for me to share a 50% with someone. For example, I'm going to lose that 50%, but what you're not looking at is, like, if you share that 50%, there is always enough. So you might be able to get to 150 that you never had an opportunity to. And from that you share, and then it grows. So the more you share, the more you grow. So if you can share a little bit on both of that, or just
these are so good, because it's so interesting, because we talk about when it comes to splits in property and business, it's like, okay, well, a 50-50, well, I don't want to give away that much.
Yeah.
And we don't look at what we're gaining from that.
Yes.
And there is such a scarcity mindset. And how I view this is
I love breathing with you. Calms me.
I always just tune in as well. It's interesting because I've pitched so many people, and it's just really taught me, you know, when it comes to people who have that scarcity mindset, it comes back to probably something that happened in their childhood. You know, could have been easily something like money doesn't grow on trees. Or there is so many people that say, don't ever mix, money with pleasure, or things like that. Have you heard things like this?
Yeah, or family or friends, don't work with them, because then if anything happens, then it's just going to go south, and you'll lose the family as well. And that's like, I've seen that in my family growing up. That was such a big part. And even though I feel like sometimes there's so much opportunity, I just don't want to risk a relationship for an opportunity. So I'd never walk on that path ever. Because my background, like my family, extended family's background is property. So they all are in property development, and they have like done resi and commercial and still doing that. And I always wanted to sort of imagine, like, if you're one person versus if you're a people of like 100 people army, there is like, it will be a difference in the capacity that you can do stuff, you know. And in property or in any business or project, you need people. You need more people, and it's just about sharing that responsibility with the pie as well. So it's not just the pie; it's the responsibility that comes with it. Sorry, I didn't digress.
There is so many there's so many ways I can go through this, and one thing that jumps out to me is really, it comes back to, so firstly, I just recognize now people who have that scarcity mindset. I just wouldn't work with someone like that.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, I'm not desperate. I'm deliberate about who and what I want to work with, because energy flows with everything, and it starts with, you know, the property that you buy and the relationship that you go into and how you feel about the project going. But if you have both parties agreed and happy, it's going to be such a flourishing and flowing project that results in having profit. And if you're up against someone who has that scarcity, you're always it's also, our world always reflects our internal dialogue in our internal reflection. So if you actually, I find that if you see something in threes, it has nothing to do with the external, it's all to do with you, and it's the thing that's next scheduled to be loved for you. So if you keep coming against, wanting to raise capital or coming up with someone or people or scenarios or conversations around scarcity, there is something within you that
it's a reflection.
Yeah. And it's really just a trusting. Like, do I trust myself enough that I can hold all of this and be seen in this? And one thing as well is, which I've journeyed, I have absolutely journeyed this at different levels of capacities. How would I be seen by the other person if I lost their money or if I lost them as a friend or as someone? But I always love to go back to seasons. We are all cyclic beings and we're also fearful of death. But for us to go to our next level, we actually have to let go of that identity.
Yeah.
The identity of us that's in that scarcity, that feels that we're going to, lose a family or friend if we go and work with them and the project doesn't work out. And there is a level that I've had to also get comfortable with of taking emotion out of this. And how do I work with me as a feminine woman in this masculine industry as well? As I said, there's so much depth to this that I can speak on different little threads that come, and it's really interesting because with the clients as well that I work with, typically, there's always just like a different thread that's really coming through for them as to why they're not going to their next level, and it's not a blanket for everyone. So that's why it's like, come back to your breath, start actually just being conscious to how you are showing up every single day. See what is the world reflecting back to you. Do you say like all the time, I can't do this because? That's just a story that you're playing out. And the more that we just become consciously aware of the things that we're saying on repeat that we just don't even realize, they're actually all the things that are stopping us from, making millions or replacing our job. And the biggest thing for me and why I do from moving from being just a property developer to doing property and energetics coaching is because I want everybody else to have the freedom. I want everybody to feel freedom. I think everyone that I meet on my journey seeks freedom in some way or capacity. And really, freedom is not an external destination. It's an internal destination. And, you can go to any aged care facility and you ask those who are laying on their bed in their 80s and saying, what is the success to life? Or what would you wish that you did, more of in your, in your years? And majority of them always say, I just wish I did the thing that made me happy. And that's just trusting and taking action on the thing that they wanted to. And that's the freedom within. And that's why I blend the energetics, because it's how do we get past all these internal dialogues and the things that happen to us as children. And it might not be a traumatic event. It's just how do we get past our humanness, wanting to be safe, to do the thing that we really want to do.
Like, I love that, because we are constantly manifesting our reality, even unknowingly, because it's the internal dialogue, and it's just constantly checking in within you and seeing like what is the dialogue that I'm constantly talking. Like if I want to go left and I know that I have the capacity to sort of build something there, but my fear is telling me to go right, then how do I sort of bring myself and align my body and mind to go left and trust? So I think, it's the constant work within you in order for you to sort of unveil that next level. And we all have that. It's just like letting yourself, being so open and trusting the unknown and just walking in that path. So,
Yes, We're all manifesting every single day.
Every single day.
Every day we all are. It's just whether are you speaking life into your world, into your being, or are you speaking negatively? Are you planning for all the things that you have to pay and that you don't have enough money to do things in life, or you don't have the capacity, or you don't have the funds, or you don't have the ability or skills to do property? Or are you actually speaking life into yourself? Because I remember when I started, I didn't have the experience, but I would speak life into myself every single day, even before I see it physically. And everyone's waiting. Everyone's waiting for the physical representation of like, okay, I've been manifesting, I've been meditating, I've been writing down that, I'm going to be a millionaire, but I don't have $1 million in my bank account. It's been a month.
So true.
It's like, well, there's still a part of you that's, that waiting for the external validation. So then that means you don't still believe it.
Yes.
You don't believe in yourself.
Yeah. So the key is knowing that it's already done and just walking in that version rather than waiting for that to happen, because it's not going to, you're not chasing something, you already have that. And you just need to align yourself in that version and walk in those shoes every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said I was a property developer and I hadn't even developed anything.
Yeah.
Every conversation I was having, I'm a property developer. The first couple of times I was like, I'm a property developer. It was like through my teeth and I was like, looking either side, that feeling, and you're like internally, you're like, you're lying. Yeah. But it is. It's all that internal dialogue. How do you just get over that? And it's like, no, I am a property developer. That's what I'm working towards. And that's what I became.
Yeah. So face it till you embrace it. It's not faking. It's like facing it until you can embrace that. That's what Jay Shetty says.
I love that. Yes. I love that.
And you have to sort of dive into it rather than like, even sometimes I feel like, oh, do I need X, Y, and Z skills even after having so many years of experience? And I still sort of go back because I'm always like, oh, I want to improve myself and I just want to learn more skills. But it's not about the skills. It's about the confidence and the belief in yourself. And I've been someone who have always I learned on the job rather than learning before and then applying that. I've always been someone who has like dived straight in without even knowing how to swim or how deep the water is, and I just go all in and then I just learn it on the way. So
I have a saying, action precedes clarity.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
And if you can listen to millionaires and billionaires, and we have so much access to hearing from them now and their stories, and so many times they had no idea.
Yeah.
Or they'd never been skilled in that arena and they made it.
Yeah.
Because they just kept taking action. That's all you need to do, is just keep taking action to that thing, and it precedes the clarity. A lot of the time, I see people in this industry wanting, what's the strategy?
What's the plan?
What's the plan?
What's the business plan? Let's walk in that. I'm like, just stay in that lane, so that way you're restricting yourself, because if the plan fails, you feel like you have failed. But
And there's this great book, and it talks about, I can't remember the name, sorry. It's a new one from the guy who created 2x. 10x is easier than 2x. Have you heard? Offline.
Are you talking about the guy who's in sales? He and his family and Grant Cardone?
No, it's not Grant Cardone. And they've got a new book out, and it's scaling. And it's a really interesting, he's going to get it up. It's a really interesting, there's a part in the book where there is this guy, and he goes on to lose, Benjamin Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and Dan Sullivan. Yes, he's great. Yeah, there's a new book that's just come out, and it's about scaling. And they talk about, there was this gentleman who went on to lose billions of dollars.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, he went and raised capital, or maybe it was 2 months. It was something 2 months later. He went to go and raise capital, and he then went on to create another $1 billion company. It's like the mindset of that person the internal
Resilient.
dialogue.
Yeah.
He didn't sit in the shame or the guilt of losing a billion-dollar company himself that he created. He then went on in a very short time frame to go and create another billion-dollar company. And so often I would say more so in the Australian culture, it's shamed upon to have failures versus I see it as such a success. It's like you've gone to the depth of that now.
Yeah.
And I think in this industry, you're in anything, whenever you're on the pursuit of creating something, there's going to be a failure. And how do you continue to keep walking and keep moving through, even if you've had that failure or that setback? And when we talk about this, it's like, I fear most of the industries, I fear I'm going to lose money. It doesn't matter if they're working with someone's money or not. They fear losing money, that they'll get the wrong strategy, that they'll do the wrong deal, and that they will lose all their money by doing a property project. And I think it just comes back to, it's like, who are you? Who are you beyond all of those things? Just keep backing yourself and keep showing up, because a setback is the greatest redirection.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I think it's the bigger the numbers, I think the bigger the losses as well. And then how do you sort of not stop there and sort of still keep walking and knowing that you will be able to figure it out? Because if you have figured out the path from 0 to a million or 100 million, for example, if you lose 100 million, you are going to create 100 million faster compared to starting it from nothing. So always like coming back to that, like that's so good, like coming back to you and knowing and believing in yourself and having that self-worth within you that like you're unstoppable basically. And you can create that for you. So I think this is such a great conversation, and I love that, because even like as this podcast is for, especially for people who are starting their journey and like want to know and understand more and learn from the failures and successes of the people. And this is so good because everything starts from the belief. Everything is like believe, achieve, succeed, repeat, but we forget about the failures. And we see failures as such a big shame. But failures is like the 80% or 90% of times you will be failing, and then 10% of times you'll be succeeding. So it's like taking it as like steps. So fail, 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 fail. And the 100th time you will succeed. So that you should not let yourself stop just because of the fear of failing. Yeah, no,
I just think that it's like you're on the right journey if you're actually feeling that. If you're fearing that you will fail at something, then clearly it matters to you.
Yeah.
And if you have that, and if you have that desire within yourself, you actually will be successful.
Yeah.
Because it comes back to, I just say, what lights you up is the thing that's going to create so much abundance for you. It will create banked and millions in your bank account when you actually choose the thing that lights you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see this all the time, is that, if we're not expressed, it goes into a depression. So that comes to whether that we're using our voice as expression, whether that we're using our desires and our wants as an expression. And if we're in a job for, 20 years doing the same thing, look, in our society, not many people stay in that job for that long, but, they might hop between jobs, but then they still have this burning desire that want to get into property and create a certain type of lifestyle, to have adventure and exploration. And if they don't ever take the action to that, all what's going to happen is creating an internal depression. And we see this so much in our society, and, it's very medicalized now in, taking medications for things. But it's because when we're not talking in our society that you are having a lack of expression. And the more that you just express in the things that light you up, the doors just open.
Yeah.
And doors just open for me when I just choose the thing that lights me up. And I've definitely experienced it in a property project. And, you know, we want to talk about the failures in property as well.
Yes,
And there's one specific project that it's 2 luxury houses. And I just remember, and I just had my 4th child. And we just come back from traveling Australia in a caravan, and it was like the most incredible time. And we stopped because I was, you know, due to give birth to my 4th child, which we weren't expecting. And I remembered, and I was like, I just wanted to take that time to just be a mum and not get back into work and go back into doing property. And at that time where we were then living off our savings, and we weren't acquiring any more projects, and that was our business. So I was kind of forced to do it when I wasn't ready. And now looking back in hindsight, I chose to do something because I feared that we wouldn't have money in our bank account, a certain percentage, you know, to pay for our lifestyle and things like that. So we're like, okay, well, we got to go get another project. But I recognized I wasn't there. I wasn't ready. So the lightness in me, the excitement, the spark wasn't there. So that project was probably the hardest project that I've ever had to experience, with so many things coming up. And we all could say it's all external things. You know, the LVRs weren't stacking up, and it was the market, and there was no evidence. But what I can actually recognize is that I just didn't have the light within me to want to push that, because maybe I wouldn't have chosen that project.
Interesting. Very interesting. Because from what I have seen in my experience, and that is very true, because sometimes you feel like, I'm not feeling that. I'm not feeling good when I'm doing this. And you still go and do it just because you have to pay the bills. And you're like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have. Like, you knew when you signed, and you just like, I don't think it's going to work. Like, there's something within that's just saying, no, don't take that. It's not going to work. And you're still like, but who's going to pay the bills? And like, you just have to do it. And then you still do it. And then the end of it is just like so dragged, and it just drains all of your energy. It takes all the life from you. And you don't have the energy to sort of put in a different project that could have sort of created those 10 other opportunities for you. So how do you sort of know when to listen to that within? And how do you know if it's not the mind and it's the intuition more? It's not your ego. And it's like, because I think it was the ego that still like wants to push it. And then like, oh, you don't know, you just want to do it because you're doing it for the numbers. But then your intuition is like, the number's not going to come, because if you're not feeling good, like, it's not going to align. Hence why the result will not be there. So how do you sort of know when it's the brain talking, when it's the intuition, and then to go with the intuition?
It's so juicy, isn't it? I love this. And it is. It's either going to be that you might feel like a resentment within yourself. So you'll get to the end of something that you've done, whether you might be a client that you've worked for and you've signed and you got them a property, but then that client was like the hardest client you've ever worked with. Or, you know, you get to the end of the project and there was no profit, and you're like, how? There was profit. It's just because the energy in that was just like dull. And for me, what I've learnt now is I've had to work on that scarcity of, you know, if I don't take this, there is going to be another door that opens up. And I think getting to start to get the muscle of your intuition and start to listen to what that is, start with yes or no's. Like, start choosing with like the most simplest things, like, should I have blueberries in my smoothie today? And if it's a yes, like if it's a full yes, like, do it. If you're like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And you're probably going to find that at the start of, like, if you're not really in tuned with yourself or listening to your intuitive self, and you're just only in the mind because of everybody says to have a blueberry smoothie in the morning because it has antioxidants to start off your day. That's why I'm doing it. It's like, start to actually see where you're just overcompensating or you're actually playing on your desire. Do I desire that? And if you desire something, you're going to have a bigger yes for something. And I think that starting with your yes and no's and then starting to play on that, you know, starting to have that internal dialogue and tuning back. I always imagine as well seeing a beautiful like a golden light go back down to my heart chakra and seeing a green energy just light up in my heart. And then I always set the intention. I say, because setting an intention locks in a law with the universe, and you say, I set the intention to get a yes or a no for whether I should have a blueberry smoothie today, and just doing it really simply. Mm-hmm. And then if it's a yes, I go with it. If it's no, it's a no. But this over years, I've just gotten so much more clearer with my intuition and dialed up my psychic abilities. Everyone has them. Yeah. It's just that we're not actually using the muscle for that.
Yeah. Why do you think it's not normalized to speak more about the intuition? I think it's getting there now. Like we're slowly speaking more about the intuition, like especially in our industry, it's so corporate sometimes that it's just like all about numbers, and it's all about, is it going to make profit or not? And it's all about like going with the plan. Why do you think it's been looked down upon in terms of talking about your intuition? And do you like, this is normal for us, you know, because I think we both live in that space and we have seen the results. So it's normal for us. But how do people sort of who don't see that as normal, or who see it as a woo-woo, how does that like align with them, and how do they make it normal for them?
Mm-hmm. I feel like for my journey, how it was not normalized was because I grew up in, you know, a church-based upbringing, which I love, and I believe in, you know, God and all those things. And though what it created, there was so many rules within that, and those rules created the bubble in which, you know, I knew life is to be. So for me, I never felt safe because I felt if I started to listen to myself outside of God or listening to only God's word, then I would go to hell. So that's what created a fear in me. And I think everyone's environment's going to be different as to where they created, you know, the judgment that, you know, they're not psychic, or they can't listen to their intuitive self and things like that. And I think as society and, you know, especially in the age that we're in right now, we're in with the rise of AI. There is so much, everyone's just putting their power out into something else versus actually trusting ourselves instead.
Yeah.
But what I see the excitement of this is as AI rises and AI, you know, ascends, what follows suit to that is authenticity.
Yeah.
And the authenticity is coming back to ourselves, us as humans. You know, AI can never replace a human.
No.
Ever.
No, it
ever.
Does not have intuition, does not have any feelings, and no matter what you do, you can't create that within a machine. So I think that would be the biggest difference.
I see this so much that I think it is going to be more normalized now. I think we've come through such where we're placed in the century that we are in. I think that now that it's such a beautiful time that it's going to be more normalized, that people start to, and you can see it, there's so many more wellness places opening up, and people are so much more getting in tune to, you know, what's good for their body. And as someone who's from Sydney, you know, and switching to come to the Gold Coast and Queensland, I feel like there was it exploded. I feel like it exploded more or in Queensland.
Yeah.
And I've recently gone back to Sydney, and there's so many more wellness places and talking about meditation and things like this and all those practices that they've always been around for centuries. But I think it was, you know, through the hippie times where it kind of like, we don't want to like be like those baby boomers.
Yes.
And, you know, so it's just a natural progression of what our century is. But now with the rise of AI, I think more so this is going to be on the tip of everyone's tongue of talking about how we connect back to ourselves. How do we have more authenticity? And it's really interesting because we have so much information available now. And I think people are now tuning into going, well, what actually is authentic? Because we can all create incredible post and, I hear so often, oh, I went onto ChatGPT or Claude and, I asked him to put together a feasibility or tell me if this development site's good. And I'm like, this is, yes. It's like what AI is doing is searching the internet.
Yeah.
The internet. But AI isn't in rooms, in conversations like this of experience, in rooms where you actually learn, where it might be in a formal context of going to university and learning property development in university, or getting, going into rooms to learn how to become a real estate agent or how to, just what kind of strategy in the seminars.
Yeah.
AI is not in those rooms.
Exactly.
So it doesn't actually know the workings in the experience. And I think it comes back to is like, get into these rooms, get back into our bodies, our intuition, and trust that, we've got to get back into the humanness of things.
Yeah.
To start flexing that intuitive self of ourselves, of the human interaction instead of just online.
For sure. And I think the more you sort of practice that muscle, as you said, the more it grows stronger. So then it's easier for you to sort of feel like, oh, this person is, and then there will be a time where you don't even need to sort of tune in, because it's like you're walking that path. You are like, which one, who are the people that you want to work with, and who is an AI, for example, because they're walking, like talking, speaking, breathing AI. So,
there's a really great book, The Surrender Experience. Oh my goodness, it's an incredible book. I read it every single year again and again, because there's just so many great nuggets. And it was so incredible. The gentleman, he's actually a billionaire, and he was a yogi. He would just like meditate, and he created the biggest like company in America, and it was just so amazing. And the surrender experience really is about, how do you actually take it so then you're not just meditating for 10 minutes a day or half an hour a day. How do you actually just create your life as a surrender to life itself, and become just so in tune with your intuitive self that doors are just opening and you're just taking action, and then it just becomes effortlessly. And though this is just something that it comes after reps. Action precedes clarity. Just start doing the reps. Just take an action. And you could start off something really slow if you're really wanting to get into property, or you're wanting to take a different leap in property. Start flexing in some area of your life as to just trust and just take action. Whether that might be someone who doesn't really like to go out, or, come speak on a podcast or something like that. Just go and do it.
Yeah.
Because then you're building up that rep within yourself, that you trust yourself when something comes through to you, and whether it comes into your field and someone says, it's like the yes man theory. It's like, just say yes, just do it. Go with life, flow with life.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so beautiful. I think it's about time, but I have got a few more questions.
Great. Yes.
I think we just spoke about that. How have we covered this? I just wrote it down and I haven't even seen that after that.
Setting the intention.
It's the intention and the intuition. I think it's working. 20 years from now, what do you hope that people say about the impact that you have created? And it's not just about King Bella, or it's more about Laura, the person. Where do you see yourself, like, if you close your eyes now and if you connect yourself with yourself again, where do you see yourself in that 20 years, and how would it shape you and the impact that you would have created?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. And where I see myself is, yes, I've got King Bella as a brand, and I've got my Laura Percy coaching, but what I started to see now is that 20-year journey, and now I see myself as just the brand as Laura Percy. And what I see Laura Percy doing is, global speaking and having impact on serving others. And And how I want to be of service is, to speak really into how do you see you more? And I would say that I've done a good job.
That's awesome.
If people can see themselves more.
Yeah.
Because I just get so much enjoyment and fulfillment when I see someone who didn't think something was possible for them to then go and create something so wildly impossible in their mind because they see them.
Man.
Yeah.
If this episode gave you clarity, now is the time to execute it. Take one action, apply it, and start building your version of the financial freedom. Share it with someone if you thought this episode has added value. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Commercial Wealth Podcast.